Japanese women eat rice 3 times a day. They rarely set foot in a gym. They have never counted a calorie in their lives. And at 55, they carry some of the lowest rates of visceral belly fat anywhere on Earth. You, meanwhile, have tried everything. Less bread, more walking, smaller portions since the menopause. And still the belly sits there, unchanged, stubborn, as though none of it mattered. Because for your body after 50, none of it did. The difference between you and a Japanese woman of your age isn't discipline. It isn't genetics. It's 7 ordinary habits, each one under 10 minutes, that quietly reset the 3 hormones controlling where your body stores fat after the menopause. If you don't understand these 3 hormones, estrogen, cortisol, insulin, every effort you make is fighting the wrong enemy, and your body will keep storing fat exactly where you least want it. Not because you're weak, because the signals are wrong. By the end of this video, you'll know all 7 habits. You'll understand why each one works on your specific postmenopausal physiology. And the last habit, the one most British women have never even considered, maybe the most powerful of all. The real problem isn't what you eat. It isn't how much you move. The real problem is what 3 hormones are doing inside your body right now, and how all 3 have changed since the menopause. Imagine your metabolism as an orchestra. For 30 years, estrogen was the conductor. She kept every instrument in time. Fat went to your hips and thighs, where it was meant to sit. Insulin opened and closed the gates on your fat cells like clockwork. Cortisol only sounded the alarm when you genuinely needed it. Then, at the menopause, the conductor left the stage, and every instrument began playing its own tune. Without estrogen, fat migrates. It leaves your hips and thighs and wraps itself around your organs, deep inside your abdomen. This isn't ordinary fat. This is visceral fat, metabolically active, hormone-controlled, and almost completely resistant to calorie restriction. At the same time, cortisol, your body's panic alarm, gets louder. It rises at night. It rises when you skip meals. It rises when you push through exhaustion. And every time it spikes, it sends one instruction to your belly: store more. Then there's insulin, the gatekeeper of your fat cells. After the menopause, your cells stop listening to it properly. Every blood sugar spike after a meal now becomes storage. The gatekeeper jams shut. Fat goes in. Very little comes out. A review published by the British Menopause Society confirmed that the redistribution of fat from subcutaneous to visceral storage is directly linked to the decline of estrogen at the menopause, and that this shift occurs independently of changes in diet or exercise. This means you could eat exactly what you ate at 35, move exactly as much, and still gain belly fat. Not because you've changed, because your hormones have. It's not discipline. It's biology. I know this feeling exactly. The frustration of doing everything right and watching nothing change. But here's what most women 50 plus never discover. The solution isn't harder effort. It's different signals. And listen, if this finally explains why your belly hasn't shifted despite years of doing everything right, subscribe and share this video with a friend who's in the same position. It's the best way to help us reach more women who are still fighting their own hormones without knowing why, because what comes next changes everything. But now comes the mistake 99% of women 50 plus make, and it ruins everything. The mistake is this: you fight menopause belly fat with the same strategy that worked at 30. Intense cardio, calorie deficit, long fasting windows. Let me explain. At 30, your body had estrogen. Estrogen buffered cortisol. It kept insulin sensitive. It directed fat away from your belly. So when you ran harder or ate less, your body responded, fat burned. After the menopause, that buffer is gone. And now, every intense cardio session raises cortisol, which stores visceral fat. Every skipped meal raises cortisol, which stores visceral fat. Every aggressive 16 to 8 fasting window raises cortisol, which stores visceral fat. Let me repeat. The very things you're doing to lose this belly fat are the reason it stays. A study published in Diabetes Care found that postmenopausal women who engaged in prolonged caloric restriction showed significantly elevated cortisol levels, which directly promoted visceral fat accumulation even as overall body weight decreased. They got lighter on the scales. But the belly fat grew. It's normal after 50 to feel frustrated by this. But normal doesn't mean inevitable. Your GP didn't tell you something false. She simply didn't explain everything. She didn't explain that the tools of your 30s have become the enemies of your 50s. That your body now reads restriction as danger. That it reads intense exercise as threat. And that every threat signal goes straight to the belly. This was never explained to you, and that's why the belly stayed. Now here's what Japanese women have known for generations. 7 quiet habits, morning to evening, that send your body exactly the right hormonal signals. None of them is a diet. None of them requires a gym. Each one takes less than 10 minutes, and science can now explain why every single one works specifically on a woman's body after the menopause. Step 1. Morning miso soup. Have you ever wondered why Japanese women start their day with a warm bowl of soup? Not cereal, not toast, not a protein shake? Most Western women think breakfast is about energy. Carbohydrates to fuel the morning, quick and efficient. But here's what really happens in your body after the menopause. Your estrogen receptors are still there. They're empty, but they're intact. And certain plant compounds called isoflavones can gently dock onto those receptors and partially restore the signal that estrogen used to send. Miso, fermented soybean paste, is one of the richest natural sources of isoflavones on Earth. A warm bowl of miso soup in the morning doesn't just feed you. It sends a quiet hormonal signal to the receptors your body has been missing since the menopause. And because miso is fermented, it also delivers live bacteria directly to a gut microbiome that has been weakening since estrogen declined. A series of trials published in the Menopause Journal found that daily isoflavone intake from fermented soy was associated with reduced visceral fat accumulation in postmenopausal women, specifically through improved estrogen receptor signaling. Not a supplement, a signal. Step 2. Vegetables. First at every meal. Have you noticed that in a traditional Japanese meal, the vegetables always arrive first, before the rice, before the protein, before anything else? Most women assume the order doesn't matter. A calorie is a calorie, regardless of sequence. But now it gets really interesting. When you eat vegetables first, fiber-rich, low-glycemic vegetables, they form a slow-release barrier in your stomach. The carbohydrates and sugars that follow hit your bloodstream far more gradually. The glucose spike is smaller. The insulin response is softer. And for a postmenopausal body with growing insulin resistance, that difference is everything. Researchers at Osaka City University found that eating vegetables before carbohydrates reduced the post-meal glucose spike by up to 40% without changing the total amount of food consumed. 40%. Let me repeat, 40% less glucose just by changing the order. Same meal, different order, different hormones. Step 3, harahachi-bu. Do you ever eat until you're completely full and then wonder why you feel heavy, bloated, and sluggish for the next 2 hours? Most Western meals are designed to satisfy completely. Plates are large, portions fill the plate, and the signal to stop comes only when the stomach stretches. And here begins what changes everything. In Okinawa, the Japanese region with some of the longest-lived, leanest women on Earth, there is a phrase spoken before every meal, harahachibu. It means eat until you are 80% full, not hungry, not stuffed, 80%. This isn't about willpower, it's about insulin. When you eat to 100%, your blood sugar surges and insulin has to work overtime to clear it. And in a postmenopausal body, much of that clearance goes straight to visceral fat storage. When you stop at 80%, the spike is gentler, the gatekeeper stays relaxed, and far less of what you've eaten gets routed to your belly. The Okinawa centenarian study documented that this single practice, no calorie counting, no food elimination, no portion weighing, was associated with significantly lower rates of visceral belly fat in women over 55. Not less food, less insulin. Step 4. Green tea after meals. Have you ever noticed that Japanese women rarely drink tea before or during a meal, but almost always afterwards? Most guides assume tea is tea. Drink it whenever you like. The timing can't matter. Now pay close attention. Green tea contains a compound called EGCG, a catechin that accelerates fat oxidation in the liver. When you drink green tea after a meal, the catechins meet the glucose in your bloodstream at exactly the moment insulin is trying to clear it. The result? The sugar is processed faster, less is stored, and fat oxidation rises for the next 2 to 3 hours. Researchers at Kyoto University found that daily green tea catechin intake was associated with reduced visceral fat area, with the effect most pronounced when consumed after meals. And there's a second layer. Green tea contains theanine, a compound that gently lowers cortisol without sedation. 1 cup after lunch, 1 cup after dinner, 2 cortisol reductions per day, 2 fat-burning windows, without a single minute of effort. Not a drink, a fat-burning switch. Step 5, fermented foods daily. Do you eat anything fermented every day? Pickled vegetables, live yogurt, miso, kimchi, sauerkraut? Most women 50 plus don't. And most don't realize that their gut microbiome has changed dramatically since the menopause. This is the point where everything becomes clear. When estrogen declines, the diversity of your gut bacteria falls with it. A less diverse microbiome produces more systemic inflammation, and chronic inflammation is one of the strongest drivers of visceral fat storage in women over 50. But there is another layer. Your gut contains what researchers call the estrobolome, a specific colony of bacteria responsible for recycling and reactivating estrogen from your food. When the estrobolome weakens, even the phytoestrogens you eat pass through your body unprocessed. Professor Tim Spector's research at King's College London has shown that microbiome diversity is one of the strongest single predictors of metabolic health in older adults, and that daily fermented food intake is one of the most effective and accessible ways to restore it. A small portion of fermented vegetables at lunch, a tablespoon of live yogurt at breakfast, kimchi with dinner. These aren't side dishes. They're microbial signals telling your gut to rebuild what estrogen used to maintain on its own. Your gut decides, not your willpower. Step 6. The post-meal walk. Have you ever felt heavy and sluggish after a meal and thought the best thing to do was sit down and rest? Most women assume that exercise has to be intense to count. A gentle walk doesn't burn enough to matter. Here comes what almost no woman 50 plus knows. A gentle walk, 15 to 20 minutes, taken within 30 minutes of finishing a meal, clears glucose from your bloodstream before insulin has to store it. Your muscles absorb the sugar directly. The gatekeeper doesn't even need to open. And because the walk is gentle, cortisol stays low. No panic alarm, no visceral fat signal. A landmark study by DiPietro and colleagues, published in Diabetes Care in 2013, found that short post-meal walks were significantly more effective at controlling blood sugar in older adults than a single 45-minute morning walk, even though the total walking time was identical. Japanese women call this shokugo no sanpo, the after-meal stroll, not a workout, not a step target, a quiet walk around the block after lunch, after dinner, 2 glucose clearances per day, 2 moments where your body chooses burning over storing, not the gym, the pavement after lunch. Step 7, the evening warm bath, and now the last habit, the one I said might be the most powerful of all. Do you go to bed stressed, wired, unable to switch off, and then wonder why you wake at 3 a.m. with your mind racing? Most women 50 plus assume that poor sleep is simply part of the menopause, something you endure, nothing to be done. Here's what most guys never explain. When cortisol is still elevated at bedtime, your body never fully enters deep restorative sleep. And deep sleep is a window in which your body burns the most visceral fat. Miss that window, and cortisol stays elevated into the next morning. Hunger hormones rise, insulin resistance worsens, and the belly fat cycle repeats every single night. In Japan, the evening bath, the ofuro, is not a luxury. It is a daily reset. Warm water at 38 to 40 degrees Celsius for 15 to 20 minutes between 1 and 2 hours before bed. The warmth activates the parasympathetic nervous system, your body's safe signal. Cortisol falls, heart rate slows, core body temperature rises, then drops as you cool, and that drop is the trigger for deep sleep. Researchers at Kyoto University found that a warm bath taken 1 to 2 hours before bed significantly improved sleep onset and sleep quality, specifically through core body temperature regulation and parasympathetic activation. Your body can recover. It just needs the right signal at the right time, not discipline, warmth. Extra tip 1. Time your last meal at least 3 hours before bed. This allows glucose to clear fully and your liver to enter its overnight processing mode, extending the fat burning window that the warm bath has already opened. Extra tip 2. If you crave something in the evening, replace the snack with a warm chamomile tea. Chamomile gently lowers cortisol and signals to your nervous system that the day is over. No food, just warmth. Extra tip 3. After the warm bath, keep your bedroom cool. 16 to 18 degrees Celsius. The thermal contrast between the warm bath and the cool bedroom deepens sleep quality and supports overnight metabolic recovery. 7 habits, morning to evening. Not a single one of them asks you to eat less. Not a single one requires a gym membership, and yet each one targets the exact hormonal mechanism that puts belly fat on a woman's body after the menopause. Japanese women don't have different bodies. They don't have better genetics. They have a daily rhythm that sends their hormones the right signals at the right time without ever thinking about it. You haven't been doing anything wrong. The information was missing, and now it isn't. And listen, if you're the kind of woman who really wants to understand what her body is telling her after 50, subscribe. and share this with a friend who has been struggling with the same belly for years. That's how we help more women who finally deserve the right answers for their bodies. In the next video, I'll show you the 7 evening foods that lower cortisol overnight in women 55 plus, and why the timing of your last meal matters more than what's on the plate. You won't want to miss it. So, subscribe and hit the bell. Not a diet, a rhythm.